Good evening, Western Standard viewers, and welcome to Hannaford, a weekly politics show of the Western Standard. I'm Nigel Hannaford, and it is Thursday, June the 5th. Earlier this week, newly elected Prime Minister Mark Carney met with Canada's premiers to talk about rebuilding Canada as an energy superpower. There would be nation-building projects and legislation to cut project approval times from 10 years down to 2. With me today to talk about this is Gwyn Morgan. Gwyn, out west, you really need no introduction, but for viewers elsewhere, you are the founding CEO of Encana that became Canada's largest energy company, and you've been a director of 5 other global corporations. Gwyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Thank you very much. Gwyn, there was a lot of smiling and happy talk at that meeting, and it seemed like everybody thought there was a believable plan to make Canada great again after the 10 last years of Mr. Trudeau. But earlier today, we published a column by you in the Western Standard, and you were not so confident that anything good was going to come out of what happened on Monday. What is your problem with Mr. Carney, sir?
Well, if I could, I'll just read some of my columns to get the
Please do.
Listeners' perspective. Former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's carbon taxes, EV subsidies, and net zero targets are without a doubt the key factors in Canada's anemic economic GDP growth and doubled national debt over the 10 years that Trudeau was in power. Now I have a new Liberal Prime Minister who is also ardently net zero, but more cunning and better connected to the global zealotry establishment. Mark Carney served as the co-chair of the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, otherwise known as GUVANCE, and he was also UN Special Envoy for Climate Action and Finance. So when he was campaigning for Prime Minister, he said he would remove the consumer carbon tax. But he said this is a sort of an example of how cunning he is. He simply moved the carbon taxes from producers to voters. In other words, to producers, and the voters pay the price. But they don't know that, so they blame business people for the increase in price. His career among the global super elite makes it hard for him to relate to parents who pay carbon taxes while struggling to house and feed their families, or the people who work 14-hour days trying to build a business and meet a payroll. Mark Carney has never had to meet a payroll. Carney's career among the global super elite makes it hard for him to relate to parents who do that. And that's why one of the reasons we have a prime minister now who is a member of the super elite international group, and more scary also, the same group that wants to decarbonize the global economy. But here in Canada, our oil and gas revenues are the bedrock of our economy, the foundation of everything from equalization grants to foreign exchange revenues, crucial to the Canadian dollar exchange rate.
So when you talk, sir, about a global elite in this field of energy, I think you just said that they do have a goal, and that is to decarbonize our Western economies. Why? I mean, I know there's a climate change argument going on here, but is it all about saving the planet, or is there something else going on here?
Well, a lot of people have different views on that. Something is to say is kind of a international plot to sort of hamper the future of the Western world. But I don't quite get that far. I think these are climate zealots, and they are convinced that if we don't cut the emissions, we're going to destroy the world. And in that regard, let me read something else from my column.
Yes.
Trudeau's net zero policies inflicted huge economic damage and a decade of economic and personal sacrifice. But to what end? China, India, Russia, and the United States combined produce almost 40 times the carbon emissions that we do. If Canada was to shut down and disappear from the earth completely, it would take those countries 9 days to make up the difference in emissions. 9 days. And that's what Canadians have been paying the price for years under the Trudeau and now the Carney plan.
So you are saying, I think, that Mr. Carney has very clearly laid out his case over a long period of time, 20 plus years, and that there's no way that he could have walked all that back in his own mind, and therefore what he's telling us about becoming an energy superpower is disingenuous. What would it take, sir, for you to take Mr. Carney at his word when he says he wants to make Canada an energy superpower? What does he have to do?
Well, I'll tell you what he doesn't have to do. In the recent meeting with the premiers, he put the classic Liberal spin on what you're talking about. He said, yes, we'll build a pipeline, but only if you decarbonize the oil. These are his words. Only. What
does that mean, actually, for people who don't follow it as closely as we do? Decarbonizing oil. What do you do to decarbonize oil?
What do you do to change metal to plastic? I mean, it's impossible. The oil is oil. And so when he's talking about decarbonizing, what I think he means is offsetting it with all kinds of other emissions controls. But there's
buried CO2 and pump CO2 down holes?
Only if they decarbonize the oil. No one knows what that means, but in a typical fashion, the Liberals haven't defined it. It's one of these ways that Carney and his predecessor go about just trying to be as ambiguous as possible. And he's a master of ambiguity. He says one thing, but he means another. And we're becoming very familiar with that with Mark Carney.
Well, yes, that certainly seems to be so. One thing that you have pointed out in several of your columns is that it's really no good talking about more pipelines and whether they have decarbonized oil or something else in them unless you remove the emissions cap. There seems to me there's a couple of other things that need to go with, like the no pipelines bill and the tanker ban on the West Coast. But let's start first with the emissions cap. What is it, and what's it supposed to do, and what's actually been the effect?
Well, what it amounts to is, let's say today we're producing a certain amount of emissions from our oil and gas. That would be capped. No more emissions. But at the same time, you're supposed to build a pipeline that's going to carry more oil. So it's a conundrum and it's a meaningless statement because you cannot produce more oil and take it through a pipeline to markets without some increase in emissions. So that's typical of Carney. He'll say one thing and then he put something else in front of it. And when it comes right down to it, it makes the first thing he said impossible.
So really, an emissions cap is a production cap by another name.
Yes.
And if you have a production cap, then where the issue of whether there's a pipeline or not becomes less important because you've got nothing to put in it.
Exactly. It's impossible.
When you hear Mr. Carney talking about that he's all for pipelines if he has the but he says you have to have indigenous agreement, and you have to have, if it's going to go across Quebec to the east, you need the agreement of the Quebec government. Is he really speaking in favor of pipelines, or is he just talking?
Well, it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, Nigel. I think he'll say things, but he knows he'll say, I'm in favor of something, but he knows darn well that the other conditions around it are impossible to meet. And then, obviously further discussions with the Aboriginals or the First Nations are happening all the time. And everywhere we produce oil that it's in their areas, they're already being consulted. So, but he always has some reason we're going to do something, but he knows in the back of his mind that something else is going to stop it anyway.
Well, he has set himself a very ambitious target of building a strengthened Canadian economy. He talks about it being an energy superpower, and yet, as you rightly point out, there are several caveats on this. Given what you know of Mr. Carney and what you know of the efforts that he made over an extended period of time to try and persuade people not to invest in the energy industry, this is while he was at the Bank of England and later working for the United Nations, when you see what's left, what has he got to work with? What can he do? Surely this isn't all about solar power that only works during the day and wind power that only works when the wind blows. That's not his solution, is it?
Well, he's a very surreptitious guy. He says something, but he knows that he's in favor of something, knowing that it can't happen anyway because of something else he's doing. But he's a very I don't know, obtuse guy. But that's probably even a over favorable thing to say about him. He's deliberately a chameleon, and we already know what this real chameleon's about. But he says things that he knows can't happen, and therefore will already give him an excuse for it not happening.
Now, during your professional career, did you ever meet him personally?
No.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, Nigel. People talk about these bank, the heads of these banks, national banks, as being some sort of a guru. Actually, when it comes right down to it, whether it be our head of our national bank or Britain's or where else, they don't have any power to do anything except set the interest rate. They do not make financial decisions. They're not involved in the budget. They are simply sitting there in this wonderful little job at the top of the rung sort of thing to say, okay, well, we're going to change the interest rate or up or down. And maybe we'll say to the government that they shouldn't spend as much money, but he doesn't have any power over that. He never has that. So he's never had to deal with being accountable for what really happens.
So I come back to the question, as Prime Minister, what is the one thing, the two things that he could do that would make you say, okay, maybe he really means what he says?
Well, he could stop sort of speaking in riddles, which he does.
Mm-hmm.
And when you speak in riddles, it's hard to pick out anything particularly that he could do to make him believable.
If he dropped the emissions cap, would you take him seriously?
If he dropped the emissions cap about a pipeline?
Yes.
I would take him seriously about that, but I'd worry about some other reason why it can't happen.
No.
He has in the back of his mind.
What else could there be? The no tanker ban, perhaps, in BC?
Well, one of the things that Pierre Poilievre said was we're going to set the regulatory process up so it's only going to take a year. Carney says it'll take at least 2 years, but he knows that unless something's fundamentally changed with the regulatory system, it'll take a lot longer than that. So he's already knows that in a lot of ways that for his 4-year term, whatever he says about building a pipeline is not going to happen.
No. So he has, on the other hand, made some very bold promises about what he's going to do. He has to try something. What do you think that he has in the back of his mind? Like, he's very friendly with the Chinese government. Do you think he has in his mind importing masses of Chinese solar panels, perhaps? Is the solar his plan?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the one thing that is over in the background, maybe in the foreground of all this, is this country's almost bankrupt right now. Our national debt is doubled under the Trudeau government. Our dollar is basically not worth the economy that we have. It's got to be headed down if we keep on carrying the way we are. And so we're a country that needs to create jobs, need to create industry, we need to attract business, and we need to get business excited about building new things in this country. And I don't see that he's the prime minister who can do that.
And yet that's what he has promised to do.
Well, I'm not. I try not to be overly pessimistic. I hope he does, but he's going to have to. He's going to have to be a person of his word, and so far we haven't seen that.
Yeah. So it's a. Are there any other members of the cabinet that give you any hope that there is something better on the way? For example, the new energy minister, probably somebody you know, Tim Hudson.
Yes, and I have to say that's an excellent appointment. And to be fair, Nigel, when I heard that, I thought, well, maybe there is something to this guy. Maybe this prime minister, is more honest about what his intentions are than I thought. Then I saw that he also had the other guy on the regulatory side is a guy who has been against the oil industry his whole life. So, I don't know whether it's kind of creating automatic cancellation of one person versus another or not. But I'm trying to be optimistic because I really felt that energy appointment was excellent, and I'll just try to remain hopeful.
Yes. Well, certainly his appointment to the Environment Ministry is, the name escapes me for a moment.
Guilbert.
Pardon?
Guilbert.
Uh-huh. It was a woman, Julie. Anyway, but she's been a hardline anti-oil industry, and now she's in the ECCC environment.
Yeah, very hard line. It's a very hard line, and that's why I was saying he seems to sort of feel like creating this tension between it, and it maybe gives him an excuse for things not happening.
It sort of makes you wonder where all this leads. If you say, well, this is my intention, but these things need to happen, those things can't happen. So that intention doesn't come through. Well, then what was the intention? Where are we going with this?
I call him a master of ambiguity.
Well, I do believe you. I do believe you're right. I'm just picking up a column that you contributed to us very recently, in which you spoke about the regulatory paralysis and hostility to core industries. During the Trudeau years, some $500 billion in energy projects were blocked. That capital won't return until Canada offers clarity and confidence. Even if the Prime Minister was totally reliable in these things, how long does it take the industry to decide maybe there's something good that can be done in Canada? It takes years to build a reputation. You can lose it in a couple of minutes. How long does it take to get this back?
Well, it's a very difficult question to answer. I mean, the bottom line is that these companies try to build a pipeline to the northwest coast. They tried to build a pipeline across the country to Quebec, and they spent billions of dollars, years and years in regulatory actions, and actually at the end weren't successful. So I think there's a great hesitancy on the part of the industry putting more billions into something, and when they maybe don't even trust the guy in the first place.
Yeah. Well, so we really have 4 years at least to wait before we can even begin, perhaps, to rebuild that confidence under a different government. You mentioned the Northeast pipeline, the one that is slated to go to Churchill and Hudson's Bay. I suppose the same thing applies if you don't have any oil to put in it because of the emissions cap. It's not going to do you a lot of good.
No, I was really talking about Energy East. Quite frankly, I think this whole Churchill thing is just a ridiculous idea. This has been thought about for quite a few years, but it's very difficult to build a pipeline to Churchill. But even more so, the port is not open for a lot of the year because you can't get ships into it. So it's so frozen up there. And so it would be tens of billions of dollars, years and years, and not very functional.
Oh, although there's quite a few people in Alberta going to be disappointed to hear that, because I do believe that's become something of a great white hope. That's alarming, but then the whole thing is alarming, sir. It's just one of the things we live with here. You're better off in, oh boy, there we go. You're better off in Victoria, I do believe. Mr. Carney is our problem, I do believe, and I want to just thank you for illuminating some of the specifics about that. Any closing thoughts? Can you tell us anything for our encouragement as we get ready to sign off?
Well, I think that there's a lot of things going on in the country. I mean, Alberta and probably Saskatchewan are wondering if they should even be in the union. So there's tensions, and they can only go two directions. They can get worse or better. And what I'm hoping for is that they will get better because there'll be some sensitivity on the part of those situations across the country, not just in the federal government, but in Canadians generally. If we're going to be a united country, we have to be more united politically, individually across the nation. And I'm hoping that we get to somewhere close to that.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Gwyn Morgan, a giant in the Alberta oil industry, now taking his retirement in Victoria and speaking to us from there. Thank you very much, Mr. Morgan. It's been a pleasure to have you on the program.
Thank you, Nigel. All the best.
Yeah, no, it's been great. Thank you so much. For the Western Standard, I'm Nigel Hannaford.